Welcome to the Retreat Full Circle podcast. I'm your host, Christina Baker. Season 1, Episode 1, From Religious Trauma to Soul Liberation. This morning, my neighbor came by to pick up some boxes and we ended up chatting on my front porch for a while. It was one of those warm but not scorching Florida mornings, and I welcomed the opportunity to connect. I mentioned a Facebook post she made about local teens sneaking off into the woods during church hours. What struck me wasn't the situation itself, it was her tone. She responded with concern, not condemnation. So vastly different from the shaming culture I grew up in. That opened the door for a deeper conversation about her spiritual life, her thoughts on the church she attends, and how she sets monthly intentions for her mind, body, and spirit. She went on to say that she goes to a Southern Baptist church, though they've dropped the Baptist from their signage and materials. I hesitated for a second and then decided to be honest. I told her that I had seen that trend, and while I understand the marketing behind it, I find it deceptive. And then I shared my story. In 2008, I came out as gay. The pastor's wife at my church, a Southern Baptist church I had attended my entire life, told me that she would do everything, and I quote, everything in her power to separate me from my children, end quote. My own mother looked me in the eye, filled with hatred, and said that I would lose everything, my family, my friends, my church, and my work. She was right, thankfully. I did lose it all. My marriage, my financial security, my entire church community. From a congregation of over 2,000, I can count on one hand the people who still spoke to me. That conversation with my neighbor stirred up some old wounds, but it also reminded me of how far I've come and how much I still have to say. Now, in our second year of running Full Circle retreats, I've noticed recurring themes that come up with our guests: grief, identity, purpose. But one that shows up almost every time: religious trauma. I can't tell you how often I hear phrases like recovering Catholic or former Baptist. That's not a coincidence. This past week, I was asked to participate in a group called Sacred Shift Movement. They are a brand new network of courageous people who are no longer willing to stay silent in the face of corruption cloaked in spirituality. This group exists to expose darkness by bringing awareness, to hold systems of power accountable, and to offer refuge for those deconstructing toxic belief systems. As I joined the call to hear more about this group, I found myself feeling a multitude of emotions. A little scared, incredibly inspired, but overall, I was excited to be a part of this community. It is radically inclusive, where stories are shared and honored, wounds are witnessed, and liberation is the goal, where you are free to believe what you choose. They speak truth to power, honor people's lived experiences, and reclaim what is sacred from those who have twisted it beyond recognition. This distortion is at the heart of what's breaking so many within organized religion. Fear-based teachings and manipulative doctrines, often designed to control and extract money, keep people trapped in mental and spiritual chains. While my personal experience is rooted in Christianity, spiritual trauma exists across all religions. Abuse, emotional, psychological, financial, and even physical, has long hidden behind the veil of faith, and it's well past time to expose it and strip away the secrecy that has protected it for far too long. As a child, I was deeply affected by Bible stories, burning bushes, animal sacrifices, demons being cast out. I was sensitive and visual, prone to nightmares. But in church, violence was sacred if it served the message. Watching Jesus be crucified, that was necessary. But two people kissing on TV, ugh, that was shameful and disgusting, especially if they weren't married. That hypocrisy etched itself into my subconscious. So I followed the script, married a man, had 2 kids, stayed home, and served the church. But after my second child, I started having vivid dreams about women. I had no frame of reference, no model for what this meant. I went to my Christian therapist in an absolute panic, and he told me that I wasn't responsible for my dreams. Whew, that was a relief. But they didn't stop. I prayed for God to take the dreams away, begging him, or to send me someone safe to experiment with so I could get it out of my system and go back to being a good wife. Spoiler alert, that is not what happened. One woman became my first secret relationship, then another, then another. It was the third, an older woman with a deeply spiritual presence who gently challenged me to deconstruct everything I knew. She helped me see that my queerness wasn't a curse. It was, in fact, a gift, that I wasn't broken. I was becoming. Since then, I've been on an ever-evolving spiritual path. And once I stopped fighting who I was and made peace with the universe, everything changed. A few examples. My lifelong IBS disappeared. I've reunited with my childhood best friend, who is now my wife. I built a career that I loved for over a decade. I became financially secure. And today, I live on a farm with my wife, surrounded by rescue animals where people come to heal. None of that would have happened if I had stayed in the church, living a life I was told would be holy, but felt like slow suffocation. I was promised peace, but I only found it when I stopped living for their version of God and started living in alignment with my truth. The lies I was fed, wrapped in scripture and coated in fear, collapsed the moment I chose authenticity. That's when the peace arrived. That's when the love began to flow freely. And that is how I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that I had chosen the right path. The name Full Circle Retreats says it all. When I think about what brought me joy as a child, it was always nature, getting my hands dirty, being around animals. In my early teens, my parents had a large home where they hosted missionaries and musicians. Looking back, that was one of the only times I felt my parents were proud of me. I was the hostess, giving tours, taking guests fishing, playing tennis, shooting pool. I felt useful, confident, loved. A full 6 months into owning this retreat space, it hit me. The universe had been planting seeds all along. That early joy was preparing me to build this, a space for others to rest, reconnect, and feel safe. It's come full circle, and I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Know this: if I had silenced my soul to make others comfortable, if I had continued to shrink to fit inside a belief system that didn't allow me to fully exist, I wouldn't be here. None of this would. And if you're listening and feeling that familiar ache in your gut, the one that says, I'm living half a life just to keep the peace. Please know, you are not alone. You are not crazy. And you don't have to stay. This podcast is a space for those who are questioning, healing, deconstructing, or just beginning to peek behind the curtain. In future episodes, I'll share more stories, my own and others. Some will be hard to hear, others will make you laugh, but all of them will be honest. Because the truth matters, and so do you. My name is Christina Baker, and this is the Retreat Full Circle podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need this message.